You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am your handsome and charming host, Jim, and with me, as always, is...
I think I'm more handsome and more charming, and this is Rocco.
And apparently, my delusional partner is here today. But luckily, we have someone in the studio today who is actually better looking and more charming than both of us. We have Tim Yarris from Autodesk in the house today. Good morning, Tim. Thanks for being here, man.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So for those of you who don't know Tim, Tim is the Civil 3D product manager over at Autodesk, as well as the man in charge of its new companion products, Project Explorer, which we're going to be talking about today, and grading optimization. So we're really, really excited to have you on the show, Tim. So really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So before we get started on today's topic, which is Project Explorer, which is just, I'm really excited about today's topic. I'm a CAD geek and I love this stuff. But before we get into that, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background, and how did you get to be the big head honcho of the Autodesk Civil 3D world?
Head honchos. I'm still a cog in the big machine, but it's all good. So I've been with Autodesk this is my 15th year. So I actually have been on Civil 3D for my entire tenure here. So I started back when Civil 3D was kind of just starting to learn how to crawl a bit. And So I started out doing things such as I actually started writing a lot of the tutorials and help that shipped with the product, and got super into like the guts of every individual feature, at least at a broad sense. Moved into things such as I spent some time doing user experience designing the workflows and the UIs and stuff like that. And then several years ago, I think it's been like 5 years, I kind of graduated into the product management standpoint, which has been really awesome, just working closely with customers and partners like yourselves. And it's a great place to be, and just being able to see the product kind of come through its life cycle has been pretty awesome. So it's a good place to be.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. Like I said, the reason that we asked him to be on the podcast today is to talk about a new feature for Civil 3D that he kind of streamlined and brought up here. And really, it's Project Explorer. And for my money, it is the best thing that Autodesk has added to the Civil 3D tool set in a very long time. And I spoke about it a little bit a couple of weeks back on this show. And it's called Project Explorer, and it's an absolutely brilliant bit of software design. And like I said, since Tim is the man in charge of it, I couldn't think of anybody better to tell us about it. Not even me for once. I'm not the subject matter expert of my own mind for a change. So Project Explorer really caught my attention when I installed it as part of my 2022 AEC collection, and I immediately saw it as a really intuitive way for engineers to interact with the design model in a manner that doesn't really require them to be CAD and Civil 3D experts. It has a really simple, tabular-based dialog box that shows you every single Civil 3D object in your drawing file. And it lets the engineer change the design specs and the details and so on for every one of those components, without them ever even having to look at the underlying Civil 3D tools. I mean, you think about that power for a minute. People can easily work in Civil 3D without even knowing Civil 3D. And that's just absolutely mind-blowing to me. And like I was talking with Tim about a week or so ago, and he kind of surprised me. And he told me that customer, so to speak, that wasn't the primary user that they were targeting Project Explorer towards. Autodesk had a completely different user approach in mind when they developed this. So Tim, who was the original target audience here, and how did you see Project Explorer kind of making their life easier?
So, I mean, the engineer that you described who doesn't live in Civil 3D 24/7, that's definitely one of the use cases that we had in mind for it. Because, like you said, it's a great way to just kind of quickly get into things and become familiar with a project without being a Civil 3D expert. That was absolutely one of the target audiences that we had, but we really saw the value in Project Explorer as just a tool that every Civil 3D user could use. Quick example being, like, I've actually been in it like a lot over the last couple of days because I've been digging into a project that someone else had got really going with and everything. And it's a great way to kind of figure out kind of how a project is set up. And so, I mean, our customers, pretty much anybody listening to this and anybody that uses Civil 3D, it's pretty rare that one person works on one project start to finish. It's always a collaborative, right?
All my life, I've never done that. That would be a great concept.
Yeah. So it's that kind of use case for me, at least, has been kind of one of the biggest things that has really given value to Project Explorer. So just being able to open up a complicated project and just figure out how it's put together. Like this project that I was working on was a kind of a relatively simple like highway project, but whole bunch of alignments, whole bunch of corridors, and just being able to have one user interface, Project Explorer, where you could pick an object in the drawing, have it pop up on Project Explorer, and be able to see all the different parameters that are associated with it, all the other kind of downstream objects that it works with and depend upon it, just really super helpful. And just being able to kind of switch between those different objects without having to close out of a dialog box, pan and zoom to the next object, open up the properties dialog box, pan and zoom around, blah, 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 really makes a big difference. Just not having to dig through a whole bunch of different dialog boxes, just being able to have this one master dialog box just kind of docked over on a second monitor where whatever you pick in Civil 3D, just everything pops up right in that dialog is just super helpful.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, for me, the fact that anybody, right, from your junior CAD staff all the way up to your professional engineers, they can get immediate access to all aspects of the design, like Tim was saying, and even use the Project Explorer interface to modify the model, right, using criteria-based design in those tabs, instead of the traditional drafting process of having to find the object and pick the object and know what tools to use. I think it just offers it's like Tim said, right? It's a great learning tool for your junior staff, right? They get to learn what the design aspects are and what has to go into every component. And I think it drastically reduces the time that it takes for engineers to make decisions and changes, because the Project Explorer lets them focus on the intent of the design rather than the CAD process. And look, let's face it. I think it also keeps the engineers from completely destroying the models and the standards that you spent weeks building. Right? Let's face it. Most of them aren't really as good with CAD as they think they are. And I will point out here that all complaints about the opinions expressed on this show should be sent to Rocco here at Zentech. Even though Jim said it was Rocco's idea. I didn't mean to insult the engineers. I kind of did, but they'll all forgive me. So Tim, what do you see as the best use cases for professional engineers with Project Explorer? What do you think it really shines specifically for them?
So a few different things. So the first thing that Project Explorer is actually an acquisition. So this was a tool that one of our really trusted partners that we've been working with for years had been developing for several years. And one of the things that really stood out to us, which was an absolute huge request from customers for years, was just better tools to create custom reports and custom AutoCAD tables from Civil 3D objects. And so Project Explorer just really shines at just kind of those downstream deliverables that engineers really need as part of their projects. So, I mean, just being able to just create those really customizable reports, AutoCAD tables that can remain dynamic to all the changes within your design are just super super helpful tools.
Yeah.
Other things that, the other thing that really kind of shines for me is just, again, it's that one interface that you can, it's kind of like just the one-stop shop for like all of your kind of interrogation and editing related functionality. So just being able to see everything related to an object without having to dig through like the alignment properties dialog box and the alignment entities panorama window and all that kind of stuff. Just having all that stuff in one spot. And then just the fact that it's modeless, so dumb computer speak, for basically you can have this dialog box open and still interact with your drawing space. And so being able to just kind of have that, all that data open on a dialog box and still be able to pan and zoom around in your drawing and still create other objects within the drawing with this one dialog box still open is a big deal.
It's a real big deal. That's kind of how I've defaulted to working with it now. I'm in Civil 3D. I just have the Project Explorer docked on my second monitor 24/7. I never close it. Just let it run. Yep. Brilliant little interface. So.
Yeah.
All right. So Rocco, let's wake you up for a minute. Let's bring you into conversation. So I know Rocco, you're not a civil or a tech guy, but where do you think a tool like this falls in line for our civil clients? Are there still a lot of engineers out there who aren't comfortable with extensive CAD usage on their own, and do you think that they can make use of a simplified interface like Project Explorer is providing?
Oh yeah, hey look, Civil 3D is a great product, but a lot of people still struggle to learn how to use it. We still talk to a lot of land development desktop people that are still looking.
They're still out there
to move, to move to Civil 3D, and so so having a tool like this it is huge, and it's just about getting the word out and showing them what the tool is all about. So yeah, I think it's definitely a powerful tool that will definitely help folks.
Yeah, I like it. So for guys like Tim and I, right? We've been kind of working with Civil 3D on a daily basis for more years than I'm sure either of us really like to admit to. A tool like Project Explorer is really exciting, right? For me, the idea that I have a list of tabs, like I said, on a separate monitor that lets me go through groups of items like surfaces and alignments and pipe networks and so on, and it. I'm not just able to verify the design data there, but I'm able to change it. And that's fantastic to me. I love that I can right-click on any Civil 3D object in Project Explorer and zoom to it, right? So that I can see it on the drawing. And I love that I can change the display and the label styles and those items right through the Project Explorer. I love that I can compare, multiple items against each other. Like I need to see the existing grade and the depth of cover over the pipes, and I can see all of that right in the Project Explorer preview window for the actual objects in my design, not like standardized pre-canned previews, real objects that we're working with. And I'm really impressed by the way you can, like Tim was saying earlier, right? You can generate reports and tables on the fly for just about any item in your drawing file. And I think that gives a whole new level of engineering interaction with this Civil 3D data that we've just never seen before. So, Tim, in terms of favorites, right? What are your favorite Project Explorer features, right? What things in the system, give your inner geek the warm fuzzies?
Let's see. So a couple different things. So the first one is kind of hidden, and that's one of the things that we kind of want to fix in a bit. But there's this kind of somewhat hidden feature to Project Explorer where let's say you have like the tabular view has a whole slew of different objects to it. You've got hundreds of points or hundreds of feature lines or anything in a given drawing. And like if you highlight one of those individual objects within Project Explorer, it's one of the really slick things that you can do is just hit the control key and it'll just kind of automatically highlight the selected object within Project Explorer. Within the drawing space. So it's a really slick way to just kind of just find your way around a drawing. Just being able to find stuff like that with just in that dizzying list of like, you know how many Koga points end up in a drawing at some point in time. Just being able to see, like, I want to highlight this group of them and find out where they are in the drawing is really, really clever. Other things, so the other one that you actually just kind of touched on, Jim, is the whole idea of being able to compare different objects. So without Project Explorer, if you want to be able to, like, compare a couple of different profiles from different alignments or compare some feature lines to each other or something like that, you can do that by, like, creating throwaway superimposed profiles and stuff like that and projecting them onto a profile view. You can still do that in Civil 3D, but with Project Explorer, just being able to really quickly do that just using just a super quick compare to tool. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, Project Explorer has this kind of preview window up at the top that kind of shows you like a graphical representation of like an alignment in a profile, for example. And so if you have like a profile layout showing up on the Project Explorer window, it's really simple to just kind of grab another profile or another surface or another feature line or whatever and just really quickly pick it from that list, and it just automatically pops up in that preview pane without having to kind of create those throwaway objects or go through all the steps of projecting that other object to a profile view that you might not want to keep there for a long time. So you'll have to delete it from that profile view. Just being able to do something like that really quickly and kind of just see the context of different objects within the project is really, really cool.
Yeah, it is impressive. I mean, the fact that, like you said, you think about how much time that saves. I cannot tell you how many countless hours I've spent doing exactly that. You know, just putting together superimposed profiles just to check depth of cover and to check, the existing grade and where the existing stuff comes. Stuff that I was never going to print. I just needed the information, needed to verify something, and you spend 2 or 3 hours getting that all squared up. And in Project Explorer, it's like, I want to see that compared to that, and throw this in for fun. And there it is. Everything you need in one shot. And then you're done. You got your information, and you move on. It's incredible. It's just amazing. Yeah. So, all right. So let's take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor, who is Tim. It's not Autodesk. You need to fix that.
Sorry.
And when we get
Maybe
back,
next time.
all right, next time. There you go. So, and when we get back, I want to talk to Tim about how listeners can access, install, and work with Project Explorer. Right. So we'll be back in just a minute, folks, with more of the Cattle Call podcast. Hey everybody, this is Jim and Rocco with ZenTech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the training options that we have available here for you guys at ZenTech Consultants. We offer public training classes as well as private custom courses for all of your software and design needs. So, Rocco, why don't you tell the folks what kind of training we offer and how do they reach out to us to get it going for them?
Yeah, Jim, we cover everything from Bluebeam to Autodesk to Microsoft to BricsCAD to civil site design training and beginner through to advanced level topics. Like you said, both public and private courses. If you got a group and want to run a class specifically for your team, we can help you. So just feel free to hit our website. We're at zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK, or you can give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go, ZenTech Consultants for all of your technology training need. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call podcast, where we are talking with Tim Yarris from Autodesk today about the new Project Explorer tool that became available to a large portion of the Civil 3D user base with the 2022 release. And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Project Explorer was a downloadable add-on for the 2021 version, I believe. But unless, I don't think it was a fully developed or fully supported core feature at that point, right? So I think a lot of the Civil users out there never really even heard about it. And with 2022 though, it's a fully developed part of the Civil 3D environment. And I really want to have Tim take us through the best way for our listeners to access and use Project Explorer. All right, so Tim, let's start with access. Right, who out there has access to the Project Explorer tool for 2022?
All right. So actually, I'm going to back up a little bit because just to put a little bit of an asterisk behind what you had just talked about, Jim. So yes, Project Explorer came out originally targeted for the Civil 3D 2021 release, but that same installer of that for Project Explorer for 2021 also works for Civil 3D 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Didn't know that.
If customers are still working with Civil 3D 2020, you've still got live projects out there that are still running on 2020, you can absolutely use Project Explorer for those projects as well.
Nice. That's good to know.
So, yeah. So we know, because I mean, we know it's not like as soon as a new release of Civil 3D comes out, a switch flips and everybody jumps onto it. I mean, we know that it takes time. So we wanted to make sure that Project Explorer was available to customers a couple of releases back. So access to it, Project Explorer is currently available for anybody that has either the Autodesk AEC collection or any of our enterprise customers that have a whole enterprise business agreement that Project Explorer is wrapped up in. So that's basically who has it, and you can, if you have access to it via either of those, you can access it you can download it from either your Autodesk account, it's accounts.autodesk.com, or through the Autodesk desktop app if your organization keeps that live for you.
Okay. Yeah, and that's definitely one thing that I did notice with that, right, is that it's a separate tool that you have to download and install, right? Project Explorer, just so our listeners know, it's not just going to magically show up on your screen, even if you do have the AEC collection, right? It's a really simple upgrade. Doesn't take long at all to install, but you do want to make sure that you talk to your IT folks, your CAD managers, and you guys want to make sure that they're downloading this and distributing Project Explorer as part of your 2022 updates, right? And I'm telling you, and I'll even say this, and I don't usually say things like this, but anybody listening, the Project Explorer in and of itself, to my mind, is worth pushing to the 2022 upgrade if you guys have not pulled that trigger yet, right? Don't wait on this. This is worth getting up and getting this running just for this one tool. So, Tim, I'm sure that you guys at Autodesk have business reasons for this, but the question that comes to my mind is, why can't people who have standalone Civil 3D access Project Explorer?
We think it's it's honestly worth the bump to AEC collection, to be perfectly honest. Just the time savings that it gives you, and just, again, I mean, it's all the stuff that we've talked about here. I mean, between the time savings and just not having to dig through dialog boxes, not having to spend a ton of time becoming familiar with projects, and not necessarily having a full-blown version of Civil 3D running on your machine. It's absolutely worth the little bit of an extra bump to get to the AEC collection for Project Explorer. And plus, with the collection, you also get ton of other tools along with it. We talked about grading optimization over the last couple of weeks, Jim, and I mean that's another one that I think is really going to save people a lot of time and grief. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that one on this podcast before too long.
We will. I have every intention of bringing you back to talk about that, no doubt. So, all right. So, Rocco, in terms of Project Explorer, we have both a webinar and a class on how to use it coming up. What kind of interest and response are we seeing for those, right? Now, do you find that if people already know about Project Explorer, or is it still such a new tool that you kind of have to prompt them and explain it to them when you're talking to folks?
No, folks do not know very much about it. So, Tim should probably have a deeper chat with his marketing team, because it's it's something that people want to definitely learn more about. So, but yeah, we're to plug Zentech, we are doing a webinar and a class. There's a full 8-hour class that we're doing, and we do a lot of Civil 3D training here as well. So you can hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net, and see all the different levels of Civil 3D classes that we do. But to go back to your question, not many people know about it, so we definitely want want to keep getting the word out here.
Yeah, and that's why I was happy to have Tim on this podcast to really kind of expand that knowledge base, because on my end, right, on the tech side, I still see that most of my civil clients aren't familiar with Project Explorer. All right. I've heard, I've heard people complaining for years, right, that Civil 3D is, the red-headed stepchild of the Autodesk world, and that we don't get the support and the updates, that those folks over on the architectural side of the house always seem to get. This is it, folks, right? This is exactly the type of tool that we've all been begging for. And like Tim said, it's not the only one, right? So I'm definitely having Tim come back on the show again to talk about the grading optimization tool, which is really impressive as well. So two major upgrades in one release here. And I got to tell you, I'm really surprised that Project Explorer hasn't taken off like a shot and kind of been the most talked about item of the year. So Tim, what have you guys seen? What's been the response to Project Explorer, right? Has it been as big as you hoped for, or as big as you expected?
It's getting there. The usage is starting to ramp up, but I think that, like I think I mentioned earlier, that just the fact that customers don't necessarily jump onto the new version of Civil 3D as soon as it comes out. I mean, there's definitely some time for each version to kind of ramp up. And so that's what we're kind of seeing with Project Explorer. I mean, the people that are using it are really excited about it, like the early adopters and the people who have a bit more leeway with kind of jumping onto the next version quickly. But yeah, it's getting there for sure.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So, all right. So look, folks, I mean, I think I made it pretty obvious today what I think about Project Explorer. And you guys know me, right? You listen to the show. I'm not one for over extolling the virtues of software. While we're talking, I try anyway to give you guys a real balanced view of anything, right? Even the stuff that we actually sell here at Zentech, I tell you the good and bad, which, let's be honest, Rocco yells at me for after the show. So you should all give him a hard time over that. But like I said, I like to give you both the good and the bad side of things, and I think that honesty is why you people keep listening in. And I gotta say, so far, right, I don't see any negatives to Project Explorer at all. I mean, everything I've done in Project Explorer has worked really, really well. And I guess the only thing you might say is that, Project Explorer, it doesn't cover every possible tool and subcategory and sub-option available in Civil 3D. And maybe that's fair, but to also be fair to Tim and his group and what they're doing, right? This is the first, like I said, major production release of this product, right? And it's just going to get better as they get more user feedback and add more features and capabilities. All right, so that's my leading question for you, Tim. All right, what does the future hold for Project Explorer, right? What type of enhancements do you see coming in future releases?
Well, we're absolutely still working on it. It's not like this was just a dump it into Civil 3D and let it rot by any stretch of the imagination. Bunch of things that we're looking at right now. I mean, things like I talk on and on about the whole customizable tables and reports and that sort of thing, and just being able to make those further customizable, because I mean, every organization, every geography, every locality has different requirements for what they need to deliver. So, I mean, just being able to customize those tables and reports as like granularly as humanly possible is definitely super high on the list. Other things you mentioned at some point earlier on, the fact that like you can select any Civil 3D object with Project Explorer. That's what we're going for. There are still a couple of objects that aren't supported yet, and so things like catchments are not supported. We just, with the 2022 release, added support for pressure pipes, pressure network tools, and that kind of thing with Project Explorer. So that's just kind of just a little bit of a hint as to direction of just more support for more objects within Civil 3D. We want Project Explorer to be able to do it all. And then other things like just being able to, you might notice when you open up Project Explorer that like a lot of the parameters, or not a lot, but some of the parameters can't be edited. It's just for just viewing only. but basically we want to open up as many of the object parameters so that you can edit just about anything in Project Explorer, so that if you need to edit some super obscure parameter within a alignment with super elevation on it, then we want you to be able to edit as much as you possibly can. So just continuing to build out those editing capabilities is super high on the list. And then generally speaking, we just want to make it more and more, add more tools to make it more of a just something that you want to use absolutely every day, so that it's just easier to jump back and forth between Civil 3D and Project Explorer. So things like being able to, one of the things that's high on my list is being able to make it easier to just kind of graphically pick something in the model and then kind of navigate to it in Project Explorer, so that you're highlighting that exact object that you want to work with and that kind of thing. So just workflows between the two, and just kind of bringing the two closer together so that it's just very evident that it's a core part of Civil 3D.
Yeah. And those are all great steps. And I say, I'll throw in my votes. I love that idea that, hey, I can zoom into a pipe on the drawing, pick on the pipe, and then have Project Explorer switch to show me the details of that pipe. That's an amazing option. I vote for that. The other thing that I want to throw in, right, just so you can talk to your guys here, the other thing that would be nice if we could take the preview window and either expand it or undock it. I work with four monitors, so to be able to take the graphic window, put it on the left, and have the table on the right and the drawing in the middle, wow, that would be amazing. So there's my vote.
Cool. Well, tell you what, if you have ideas, and if anybody else has ideas, there is a Civil 3D ideas portion of the public forums on Autodesk.com. So if anybody has suggestions for things that they'd like to see in Project Explorer or in Civil 3D for that matter, then please plug them up there so that we can kind of get more people to vote on them and have them move to the top of the list for us.
There you go. That's a good tip. So, all right. So I think we can leave today's conversation. And I'm going to leave it by saying that if you guys are listening to my voice right now, you need to get every system in your office using Project Explorer today. All right, it's really that big of a change in the Civil 3D world. I love this tool. So I want to thank Tim Yarris from Autodesk for taking the time to talk with us today. And I hope that Rocco hasn't scared you off. I mean, he's just so talkative and troublesome, Tim. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I can.
Good.
But yeah, I really appreciate the time. I really like the opportunity to talk with both Jim, you, and Rocco, and as well as just I'm just as excited, if not more excited, about Project Explorer as you are. So I could ramble for quite a while on it. So I'm happy to get the chance to.
Anytime. And I really, like I said, I do want you to come back and talk to us about more Civil 3D tools on future podcasts. So again, thanks for taking the time, Tim. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, folks, we're going to get out of here, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us, 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.